was my initial introduction to Nottingham, and then Nottingham becoming Plaque Collective. So that was super exciting to see that journey with Rex. And then he and I just started having conversations about me possibly going into real estate, and he connected me with Jess Martin. So I had the pleasure of getting to know her and just hearing her story and just seeing what a wonderful lady and how professional she is. I think timing was just a little bit off, and that's okay. I think it's great to be honest with yourself. I just realized that my business was really growing, and I was getting really excited about the things coming its way. So my background is about 15 plus years in interior design, mainly with residential new design and light commercial. So most of my career, I have been with a custom home builder. So I've worked on the design and interior side with a custom home builder. And then about 2 years ago, I took a huge leap of faith and just really felt like, I really wanted flexibility and a range of projects that I wanted to be able to work on, and really kind of hand select who I work with, and just the flexibility of what that range looks like and what works for me for whatever season. So I'm a wife, a mom, and small business owner. And honestly, 2 years in, I definitely say it was the best decision I've ever made. So it's just super fun, super rewarding, love my clients, and I learn so many things every single day. So and I kind of feel like that's what we're all working for, right? Like what drives us each day and our passions. So when Rosie and I were talking about a possible topic for today, she and I really felt like for Platt and the stage, no pun intended, that you guys are at, because oh my gosh, I see everything flying on social media. Like, you guys do not slow down. Like, I just think it's amazing. I love the images and the visuals and the storytelling. It's just amazing. So I really hope that our topic on staging today, that you are just able to take away some nuggets, maybe do some more research, reach out to other colleagues, reach out to me if you're curious or have specific questions about clients. But yeah, so I pulled up the presentation, and this first one here is this is what we're going to go over. So we'll keep us nice and focused and on task. So I know you guys know your client. I feel like when you are approaching the topic of staging, sometimes that can be surprising. I find that on my side of things, where I might be meeting with a client and they might think, wow, we might be focusing on this room. And as I'm getting in there, talking with them and making observations, it might be this room and another area. And so, not that it's a negative, but it's probably something that they weren't necessarily expecting. So on your side of things, you connect with a client, you meet with them. Maybe that's at the house they need to sell. Maybe that's, another type of business service that you have, but they might not necessarily be expecting that their home is going to be staged. So I think when you just take that into consideration, how well you know your client and how their language that they speak can really make a huge difference. So when I ask, do you really know your client? I know for me, I always have to step back and just ask myself, what's the goal? What's the bigger picture here when it's with staging? Because that could mean very different things for clients. They don't always just see, oh, that could mean I could list my home for a higher price. Oh, that could mean that someone walking in for an open house really visualizes where they could be living and how they would use the space. They see that probably as costing them more money, more time, and they don't even know where to start. So that's where I feel like when you have truly that relationship with your client, you can have really specific conversations with them about the not so fun things. And let's just admit it, there are not so fun things about staging. It's a lot of work. It is hard. That is a word that probably overwhelms most of your clients. It overwhelms mine. When I say staging, they're like, oh gosh, no, like I was just looking to do this, or I was just looking to work with a real estate agent. So it's really just understanding where they're coming from the get-go. And sometimes I think instead of just diving into, well, this is what we need to do, and it's very direct and it could be very overwhelming to them, it's just think of it as a conversation. So I think a few examples would just be like knowing your client, like maybe they are a more direct communicator, and they'll take that information just fine. If you're like, you know what, we need to stage your home, I need to put a plan together, and this is what this is going to look like. You might also have those clients that you really need to talk through some things to them because they have very personal items in that home, and the thought of them pulling those out of a home that they're still currently in really does not lay well with them. It's scary, and that drives a lot of emotion. So again, just going back to having that genuine relationship of just really caring for your client, wanting the best. And I always feel like it's just a good reminder. Remind yourself what you're doing with this client, that it's not just another house I have to stage, another client that I'm going to have a staging conversation with. Really truly think about what the end goal is, and being honest and open and sharing that with them. So on this slide, a few of these points we've already hit on. Open-ended questions, I know you guys know what that is, but that gets them talking. That gets them probably letting you in to their home world a little bit more than just asking question after question after question. So in that conversation and the relationship that you've already built with them, it might come out that, you know, we don't want to hear it, but like someone might have passed away in that home, or this could have been their one home that they've lived in for 20 years and they're still trying to wrap their mind around living somewhere else and what that looks like. So just open-ended questions. Ask them what they loved about their home. And at the same time, if you're meeting with them about a possible stage of their home, ask them what hasn't worked about it. Again, if you have those layers of communication and the relationship is there, they're going to help you in being very honest with, yeah, like this room has always felt really small, or this color, man, we always meant to paint it another color, we just never got around to it. So then when you have a staging plan put together, you've already set that foundation of them remembering, oh yeah, I did remind Jess that everything wasn't great about this home. You know, I did say that to her. So when she's coming back and making these recommendations, they're not just coming from left field. It's not information. They're like, man, she is just harping on my home. Is there anything that she likes about it, you know? So I would just say little things like that make a really big difference and go a really long way in just having that conversation when you feel like you need to talk about staging with a client, or when you definitely know it's going to be at home that you have to stage. Any questions with that? Like, I know there's a lot of people on the call. You could just like raise up your hand and start talking, but any questions about that? Okay.
Laura, I'm
Yes.
curious, like if you are having a conversation with someone like saying like, hey, like your home does need to be staged, and it goes negatively, and they're
Mm-hmm.
like, no, like I'm good. I really don't need that or want
Yeah.
that. Like, what would your advice be in that situation?
Yeah, so I think for me, I always, right from the get go, no matter how long I've known the client, I always tell them that I'm always going to be honest with you and I want the best for what that goal is. So if that goal is to make this house, just look so well, sell quickly as possible, those are all really good things that I know you guys talk about in the process. So just kind of setting that foundation. It is going to happen that it can go negative. And sometimes that might just be you just need to take a step back and just tell them, talk with them that I think there are some improvements that we could do here. You're not calling out the negative with a statement like that. Okay, improvement is a positive word, and I get into this in a couple of other screens. Positive words are huge with staging because again, your client, if you said staging, they're like, I have no idea. Does my real estate agent even know how to do that? Like to me, for them, that sounds like a whole other ball game, like someone else that they would have to hire. Honestly, they think of those sometimes as very separate. So again, I think it's just being honest, Rosie, and saying, is that something you might not have expected us to have to stage your home? I feel like we need to stage your home. I want to put a plan together so you can truly see how this is going to benefit you. Those are all positive things. That's not, just kind of going right into it and saying, well, this furniture is too large and it's outdated and those are all negatives. And then then they're focusing on that. I would just say if you can keep them looking ahead at what you want to do service wise for their home, that keeps it positive. If they just keep giving pushback, I think maybe that's a separate conversation at a separate time, that once they've thought about it and you've put some thought into that maybe you need to come back together and say, I still feel like we need to stage your home. Here's what that looks like. Would you be open to us staging your home? Because it's going to benefit the sale of your home. Again, all of those are positive. Those are all positive statements and less defensive for them. Okay, so hopefully this will get us talking, but just about knowing your client. Does anyone have like a real world example of how it's really paid off to know and understand your client, like a perspective that they had or a situation that they were in your real estate process? I know someone does. You guys work with enough people.
You guys can stick that in the chat as well if you'd like.
I was going to say, I helped my best friend buy a house a year ago, and knowing your client as a person and knowing them as a real estate client are different things.
Yes.
And I thought I knew what she would want because I've known her 30 plus years. And she found this condo that I thought was tiny, and I thought they're a family of 4, and I thought she would hate it, and she insisted that we go see it, and that's the condo they bought. So that's kind of an anti-example.
No, but that's such a good way that you knew your friend / client on 2 different levels, that actually they worked together. Those 2 came together and you learned something. That's awesome. Anyone else? Jess is probably worried that I'll call on her. Don't worry, Jess, I won't. I see you. You're up in the corner of my screen. I will not call on you.
I know there are other people who have examples, but I think in the past year, I have had the most success in getting clients to stage their home than I ever have in my career.
Awesome.
And I don't know why that necessarily is, but I've had a number of people that have listed with another agent, that listing expired, and that agent, you know, didn't stage. And then I came in, staged, and we were able to sell the house pretty quick. So, I mean, I wholeheartedly believe in staging, and I always have. It's not that my thoughts on it shifted. And that's why I was able to start convincing people to do it. I have always believed in it. I think I became more confident in selling it, honestly.
Yep, that's what I was just gonna say.
Speaking through it, and what you're saying about the positive, speaking to the positives and not so much focusing on the negative.
Yeah. No, that's great, you guys. And that is a great segue for our next slide. So I think this slide represents what's very true in just about any type of a conversation, a professional conversation that you have with a client. But like I said earlier, just remember that the word staging to just about all of your clients sounds really difficult, overwhelming, and they wouldn't know where to begin. So I think if we understand that and look at that from the client's perspective, we understand why they would be a little shy to just jump right in and be like, yes, let's do it. You know, the conversation, multiple conversations about staging and what that plan is truly helps them see what you're doing for them. So just a few points here. I always find that instead of just pointing out, you know, well, this doesn't work, and yeah, maybe this would work, but we could, you know, rolling your eyes and saying you can move it around, making it more of a with them process, that you're the leader, but a with them process, meaning let's. So even saying, I want you to consider staging your home. It sounds so much better if it says, I feel what's best for your home is if we stage it. Because they're not going anywhere. You're going to be the one who leads the plan and does the staging, but they're going to be part of that, still asking you questions the whole entire time. Are you sure that's the right thing to do? Are you sure that should go there? Ooh, I really like that. Can I take that with me? You know, it's going to be a we process the whole entire time, and that helps them. That makes them feel like you're not taking something away from them either, that they're part of the process. You know, they've made the decision for whatever reason to list their home or look for a new one. You know, sometimes it's both. They're working with you for a reason, so be confident in that right off the get-go. But then just keeping in mind, if we can use words like let's and we instead of, well, you need to look into painting your walls another color. It's almost like don't create the to-do list because you're going to lose them. I can't even do that with my clients. I call it homework, and homework for my clients is like literally one thing. Like, I need you to go on Pinterest for 20 minutes and go search white cabinets for your kitchen. That's it, 20 minutes. It's like one thing. So the last thing any of our clients want is this laundry list of things that they need to be thinking about and they need to be doing. You're the professional. You totally have it. You can do it. Positive verbal communication. So going back to knowing your client and probably a load of information that they've already given you, use that. So find out the history of the home, you know, like how long have they lived there? Who did they live there with? Because whether it's a lot or very little, of course they have a personal connection to their home, and just respect that no matter if it's like everything is coming out of this home and they agree to that, they're still watching those pieces come out of their home and go into storage. In a way, staging a home, because I mean, even if you 50% stage a home, you know, and maybe the upstairs get a little tweak, it's almost like they're moving already because they're seeing they're feeling what that process looks like of these things going outside of the home that they've lived in. communicate the specific vision. So I think that is so important because you've said staging, you're on this, build of a plan of putting it together. I think your client needs to know what that specifically looks like. And so that's why building that picture, painting that picture for them, I feel is so beneficial. People can do that in different ways. I create vision boards for my clients all day long. So doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be this specific item, but they could see the chair, the sofa, the coffee table that you would possibly bring in. And that's fun for them anyway. I mean, it could give them new ideas for their new home. So I would just say throughout the process, keep communicating and painting the big picture so that they understand that. Give them the opportunity to ask questions and have opinions. But you could do that with taking photos, take measurements of the space. Whenever I'm staging, I always put a written plan together so they could have that on them. They can be checking things off as they're seeing me do things. It could be sketches. It kind of depends on your level of comfort. And I think some of these things, even if you're starting ground level with staging, you'll build up to some of these things. Like grid paper is awesome. You could put it, very easily at that 1/4 inch scale these spaces. And even that little bit of information helps your client see, oh, I see what she's doing for me. I see what he's thinking. Okay. And then I think it's okay. Like we can all get over ourselves. Like when you need to, ask a colleague. I mean, you guys have an amazing team there. Ask questions. What do you think? Or when you do have a conversation that's not going as positive as you thought it would, reach out to a colleague and say, hey, I'm having a really hard time getting this client on board for staging. I know we have to. I know we need to. What would you suggest? Or hire someone to help you with staging. I would say in this industry, all of us have our strengths. And I think a strength is admitting when you need someone else to help you. And learning from that. So just giving yourself time to put that plan. The people that I've talked to that have gone into staging, and that's like its own business on, all on its own, feel like they have to have the answers and the plan all at that first meeting. And I would be of the opinion that you do not. Like, I think you should have that initial conversation, that initial meeting of you've already put some thoughts together on why you should stage the home. And that first meeting is talking to that client about that and what that looks like. Like, is that a 2-week process? Is that a month? Who's going to be coming into the home? I think it's okay to take those few days and put that plan together and then come back to the client. I don't think say the day you're taking measurements, they're in the home with you. I don't think you have to have answers to, well, we're doing this, in this many rooms, and here's our budget. You need time to get all of those things together. And that goes back to that specific vision of not being wishy-washy or iffy on, well, I think it would be 2 weeks. No, know that it's 2 weeks. Know that you're looking at that. Be confident in the recommendations and what that specifically looks like for your client. Any thoughts or questions with that? Rosie, I am not seeing the chat box. Am I being a moron?
Not at all. We only had one question come up. I'm going to just read it to you.
Yeah, awesome.
Would you ever recommend showing clients pictures of houses that have recently sold in their area that have been staged versus ones that haven't?
Sure. I would take it one step further, and I would try to get specific photos within the Platt Collective family. So, because then you could have, well, this is what Tucker did, or try to keep that within the family of Platt Collective. and show off what you or someone else did. So yeah, I'm all about photos, or even having those facts of this home was staged and it sold in X amount of time. Or even having a personal story, like Jess said, a personal story of someone. You don't have to list who, or broadcast who the other brokerage was, but stating, hey, this was a former customer of another real estate. They came over to Platt Collective. We listed, and we staged the home, and this is how quickly it sold. So I think facts are good. I think the visuals work hand in hand with that. Great question. All right. So just some staging pointers, like whether you feel like you're a beginning stager, you're just kind of getting into this, or you feel like, hey, I've got my feet wet, I've got more to learn, or sounds like some of you might be like, I've been doing this, looking for some further growth opportunities. I just put together some staging pointers. So for me, even when, I'm working with a new construction home or remodeling, I think exterior focal points are huge as well. So not even ignoring like the simple things like a front door color. Front doors have always spoken to me. That's like the first thing that like gets me inside of a house. So a fresh front door color, even some really like slick entry door hardware, that says everything to people that, hey, even at the front door, that agent cared about how that house looked. Plants, floral, kind of a given, but again, that's a way to soften with hardscapes outside. And then some common interior focal points, and we'll look at some visuals of this. Obviously, windows, some type of a view. A fireplace is always a focal point. Your TVs, built-ins, sometimes even there's an accent wall or a feature wall, and that can be an interior focal point. So why I listed the main common interior focal points is once you've identified what your focal points are, that's really your starting ground to how you place furniture and what scale furniture is going to be at, so that you're keeping traffic patterns open, access to other areas of the home. I would say my next point is furniture should be to scale for the space. So I have a few examples of this that I've just come across recently. Not with Platt Collective, I can honestly say that, but I've been seeing a lot of furniture in homes. Like I get that we're all about clean spaces and clean lines, but the furniture almost looks too small. It is too small for the space. And I would think that from an agent's perspective, that could be a little detrimental to the people that you have walking through that home. One, I think some people think, oh, I'm making the space look even larger. I am of the opinion that you have people walking through immediately going, my furniture or new furniture that I would bring is never going to be that small. This wouldn't work. So it's actually just finding that balance of to scale. So when I say to scale, that truly is getting that tape measure out and finding your length, your width, and then drawing out what furniture dimensions you would be planning on putting in that room. I see it a lot with like the smaller scale furniture and with like dining room tables. They just look so small. Really utilize that space. You want to find that balance of what's not too large and what's not too small. Does that make sense? I don't know why that popped up. Remember that traffic patterns should be a minimum of 36 to 40 inches. So I think when you take that into play, again, as people are walking through a home, they don't want to have to be like shimmying through furniture or behind something to get to another room. Really take into consideration what a true traffic pattern should be. And that's really that 36 to 40 inches at a minimum. Lighting fixtures or converting electrical spots to recessed cans, so impactful and makes such a big difference. I do this a lot in older homes, especially downtown, where they want, we're updating everything else. We've got all these flush mount and semi-flush mount fixtures, and they're just all over the place. And it's like, oh my gosh, I'd much rather change out a bulb than continuing to change out a fixture every few years when you get tired of that one. Recessed cans, great and impactful and neutral again.
Well, how hard are those to put in? Like, in my mind, that is like a huge project. Like, what is that like?
So simple. So I just did this in a Westfield home last week. We changed out, obviously you need to hire an electrician. Hire the electrician, have the electrician, have your lights on site. It was literally 3 hours of time. So he changed out, he knew how many of the recessed cans he needed to have. We had the light fixtures on site. He took down existing, put up the new ones, converted everything out. It was 3 hours time. And it looks like a whole new space. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah, sure. And then I would also say memory points. Memory points for a home could be an oversized accessory, a sliding barn door, a wood feature wall. There are thousands of examples. But what I find is in my conversations with people that have just moved into a new home, and they might want to be, doing some renovations with me and purchasing furniture, there's always something that stood out to them about the house that they chose. And it's typically a memory point. So instead of it being, the house, the Park Avenue house, or, the Hilltop Road house, it becomes, hey, the house with that wood feature wall. Remember how cool that was? It becomes that. And so that's your client or the person who's going to buy your home. That's them remembering that house on a personal level. It's not just bricks and mortar anymore. Now they're actually going, oh yeah, that really cool house. We love that house with the feature wall. I think probably overall going neutral and transitional with furnishings, color, and accessorizing. I'm a big advocate of less is more. So when things are to scale, you don't need to over accessorize. You do not need to over furnish anything. It tells a story on its own because you've put the thought and the whole planning process, you've seen that through, so that the placement of things, the location of items, the color that you have, it's really just telling this story of everything making sense. Where you want an accent, where you want a feature, that's telling its own story, but everything's coming together and working. So I think we see a lot of examples of that, especially on Pinterest and Houzz, that, nowadays it's one paint color going throughout the house. It's a lot of recessed cans. It's a more a better designed sofa, but still a neutral color in some, some applications. So I think neutral and transitional is just another word for current. So transitional means that there's a timeless aspect to it. So it means you're putting furniture in that home that works for, maybe it's an older home. It works for that older home and the historical side of that home, but it could also work in a new construction home. It kind of moves with the time. Are there any thoughts or questions to this slide as far as the pointers and putting things to scale? Anything? Anything in the chat box, Rosie?
No, you're good. I think, slide's great.
Okay. So then let's get into some of the fun things. So I did want you guys to walk away with some good takeaways. I should have said this at the beginning. I'll make sure to email this presentation over to Rosie and she can blast it out to you guys. But these are my top 5 neutral wall paint colors. I have used these in so many homes. They, you know, gray is gray, white is white. Everyone will tell you that. That is so not true. You know, the great thing, especially about gray, when gray came, I remember when gray got so big, it hit the Midwest. And we were all like, oh, this is going to be so trendy. This isn't going to last long. Were we wrong? But now I think the most telling grays are the ones that are a great blend of warmth and cool. So you've heard the word greige, G-R-E-I-G-E. It's a greige. So a lot of these fall into that category, but they all have somewhat of a different tone. So Sherwin-Williams, Benjamin Moore, and Pittsburgh Paints all represented on here. Just really great neutral colors. I've used these as trim colors as well when it's made sense for the home, but typically wall colors. These are used for wall. And then I did my top 3 interior trim colors. So trim colors could even be like your cabinet colors if you were going white. But trim is usually like built-in colors, base, casing, crown molding, those types of things. And these, again, these are just really great. They're not stark white, but they all have a variation of, probably out of those 3, I would say gypsum from Pittsburgh Porter Paints probably is the warmest of those. Snowbound is just a soft white. Simply White is my all-time favorite. It's just a really soft, clean white. I love it. But all really good neutral undertones. They don't pull like a blue or a yellow with them. Is that helpful for you guys with paint colors? Paint can be hard. Paint can be really hard.
I had a question if I could interject.
Of course. Is that Joel?
Joel.
Hi, Joel.
How do you navigate, or how do maybe any of you navigate conversations with maybe more fixed income clients who are hesitant on spending anything, and you have to kind of start from scratch with walking them through kind of 101 of listing and costs and ballparking this versus that, especially just when there's hesitancy or just an inability to actually do it. So however you might address that.
Anyone can dive in. I would come back with a question for you guys. How quickly can you get a number for how much it's going to cost to stage? Is that a pretty quick number that you can get so you can start having those conversations for someone who's on a fixed income?
I think I can usually get a staging number within like 2 days. I can get multiple numbers within a week.
Yeah.
If I want to price different places, I have, you know, a couple stagers at different price ranges.
Yeah.
But Joel, for someone on a fixed income, if they're living in the house and they have furniture there, I try to work with what they have.
That's great.
Have a really good conversation surrounding like what are some key things you can leave out, and then you can start to pack your home because you're going to be moving. And then I offer to go through and just stick Post-it notes on things that I would like to see them pack up.
That's great.
How often do you have to circle back? And I've dealt with a lot more buyer clients than seller clients personally. What about, or how often are you having to circle back and remind, or like kind of push the gas pedal down on clients who are like, you give them a list and they get like 1 or 2 things done and are dragging their feet?
I've gone as far as going over with boxes and offering to help them.
Yeah.
Jess, would that also be a good time, like, say you go through with your Post-it notes and you mark everything, and then you schedule photography for like a week out or something? And that gives them like a deadline of like, hey, this stuff
Yeah.
needs to be packed in a week. And then you check in like a day or two before with the boxes and say,
Yeah,
hey, let's get this done.
yeah.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And then I usually show up about 45 minutes prior to the stager or the photographer so that I can continue to remove things. I mean, I'm doing it in like a nice way. Like,
Of
oh,
course.
it's been really busy and I'm going to help. So I'm going to show up prior to the photographer and clean off those countertops and tuck some things away. You'll see exactly how your home needs to look for every showing.
Awesome.
And so just like helping them.
That's so good. Oh, that means that I actually like, that was good what I put on my slide. That does make sense to you guys. Awesome. It is, because once you have that relationship, you can have that conversation with, oh my gosh, this client is not doing what they're supposed to be doing. It's not like you're being a mom to them or bossing them around. You're helping them. It's all about the help. It's not looked as, man, she just keeps telling me what to do. Man, what a nag. Like, it's like, oh yeah, she's right. Yep. I totally dropped the ball on that. Got to get this out of here. I love that process. That's a great process, Jess. Is that helpful, Joel, or do you need a little bit more insight?
No, that's great.
Okay, awesome. So on these next few screens, all of these, but the first one, I did not do. I wanted to pick one where I see some things that, well, A, it's super traditional, but B, that weren't quite right with the space. I think this is a really good example of what we talked about earlier in the presentation. If I just, before I start criticizing this, there's a lot going on in this room. So remember how we talked about like traffic patterns? In this room, you're doing a lot of scooching. You know that on the right side, so away from the fireplace, you know there's another room of some sort or hallway. You're scooting around not very well, all that furniture. So I think there's too much. Again, the furniture is not to scale. This end table here could be so much smaller. Another thing with staging, and this still represents this. Don't be afraid to like get in multiple shapes into your room. Everything can get really straight lined and boxy. So I love bringing in round. I love bringing in wood versus upholstery versus leather. It's just going to lift that space more and more. Doesn't have to be real leather. It can be a faux leather. But just bringing in that personality. You can tell how things have really changed. Look at all this greenery, you guys. We just don't see that today at all. But, I definitely think they could dial back the furniture. Even here, we've got 2 lamps on the console tables, and we've got sconces up here. You probably don't need the lamps, or they don't need to be of that scale. Would you guys agree that there's a lot going on? Yeah. What are the focal points, like we talked about earlier? What are our focal points that if you were looking at this room, you would identify as your focal points?
I have one quick comment, and it's kind of from experience with a client this past week. So I'm with her and her husband, and we walk in a couple different houses, and it was kind of interesting, some of her comments. I completely agree with them, but it kind of reminds me of this. She was like, I just feel if you're gonna like stage something, like go all, or if like you're gonna decorate something, go all out with that theme. And we were in this one house that had like some, like, it was a mixture of like old and new.
Yeah.
So there was like some new light fixtures, some new bathrooms, but then there was like all this original lighting, and it had like a historic feel mixed with this modern blend, and it was just kind of messy.
Mm-hmm.
Just a thought. And so I kind of see that green couch and I think vintage, but then I see like the modern art, and that's kind of what stands out to me.
Well, and that's why I mean, unless one of you disagrees. That's why I think it's just so beneficial to go neutral with personality, because you're then speaking to the masses of they could see themselves in that home, whether they are a little bit more traditional, maybe they're more mid-century, maybe they're super modern. If you're in that neutral with great character and personality and everything's making sense as the package, they can visualize themselves in that home. Would you guys agree with that? Okay, awesome. So yeah, so our focal points here, we obviously have windows, we have a fireplace. So the one thing that is good about this, you know, everyone except for this chair here, there's still good good detail to looking out the windows. There's a central pattern here of everyone enjoying the fireplace. So then next, these are examples of things that I've done. So in this home, obviously we have golf course view, huge row of windows. We have built-ins, we have a TV and a fireplace, and then to the left of all this is the entryway. So, you know, there's a few different ways that you could do this. A lot of this came down to she fell in love with this L-shaped sectional. So when you take into consideration the 40 inches for a traffic pattern, obviously I need to utilize this long wall on the opposite side from the entry in my traffic pattern here to get this long leg of the sectional in. But everything here is really balanced. I mean, we've got round, we've got rectangular, we've got good shape with the built-ins. And this was actually a client that I designed their home and did the styling with it. So it was easy for me to plan this because I wasn't coming in on things that were already done. This was all planned out. So, but a pair of chairs, I always think a pair of chairs, when you can do that in a space, that just helps. It creates a conversation area. Because I mean, you could have turned the corner here with the sectional, but it would have looked more blocked off. It really would have. This keeps things nice and open. So we've got the traffic pattern all in here. Kitchen's over here, so this is all open. But even with our lighting, I mean, it was literally just this one floor light, and then everything else is recessed cans. So again, it kind of just centralizes and centers the room. Great conversation, great way to enjoy the view, TV and fireplace, and then also not closing off the entryway. Any questions there with why I might have placed something where I did, or could we do something else? Like anything with that one? Okay. Then here, oh, go ahead.
Laura, Natalie asked why block those big windows, but maybe that was rhetorical.
Block them. We didn't really block them. If we knew that we had to have a sectional in there because they entertain a lot. So seating, we wanted to maximize seating. Even if I had done a short leg of a sofa or a sectional over here, that would have blocked more of the view than this. And Holly wanted to be able to just cozy right on up close to those windows. So it really doesn't block the view. There's only about maybe 8 inches beyond what you're seeing down. And the other thing that we did is we did a light filtering shade. So this is about their view, even with the shade down. It's really nice. So it brings in that natural light.
It's perfect. Thanks,
Anything
Laura.
else, Rosie?
Nope. Good to go.
So then here, this is a dining room. And so again, kind of my example to a table that's not too large and not too small. We really just felt for traffic pattern, we would just utilize both long sides of the table. You guys are probably finding that, I know I am, that in furniture, with my furniture lines that I have, you're seeing less and less of the extension tables, like the 60-inch that goes to a 72. The size it is the size it stays. So just take that into consideration when you're scaling out your spaces. I believe this was a 72 that's in here. So again, it's okay to mix things up. You not have to be matchy-matchy with all of your chairs. We wanted to do, so see how this kind of comes in right here on the sides of the chair. We wanted that to mimic this. This was the must. So this piece here was built for these windows. So actually in this house, these are casement windows. And so when they open up, they use this ledge from this piece to set like drinks or food on out to the outside. It's kind of cool. So yeah, again, just utilizing the view and the natural light, and then keeping that traffic pattern, because this traffic pattern here leads to the exterior out to the lanai. So yeah, questions or thoughts? Cool. Then here would be a great example of just how impactful a foyer can be. So this is a pretty big foyer, but at the same time, you have a lot of details going on here. So you've got a substantial door package, ceiling detail, and a stairway. So in here, you know, we had to be really thoughtful. See how I'm using the word we? It's what I say. It's not even I, it's we. We had to be really thoughtful with how deep that console table was. So I think this is like not even 14 inches, because anything wider, this would have looked so smushed in. But then just keeping everything nice and balanced. So you've got 2 lights. So we planned the 2 lights, which I think just elongate that space even more. And then just staying with a really great theme. She is, this is transitional, but then she's got like this kind of edgy modern style to her. So hence the black and the gold. So again, you just got to look at what draws someone in. So keeping this from this front door, keeping this open and clean and moving right into their great room area was key. So yeah, any questions there? Okay. And then this last one was one that I did just last year. So again, she was a client that they just had a lot of things, like her comfort level. This was, you know, this is kind of one of those things of, is this staging or is this styling? Styling, I mean, I was like, okay, enough with the candles, enough with the tchotchkes, but that's just her. Like, they just love it. So, I mean, I would probably, to make like an ottoman more functional, I would not do this big of a tray and this many things on there. So just taking little details like that into consideration when you're staging, make it look practical. Like if you're gonna have a tray up on a coffee table or an ottoman, make it practical where someone could just very easily pick that up and put that off to the side. You look at this and you're like, that doesn't move very easily. It's just pretty. So taking little things like that into consideration. But again, we've got views over here. So this leads out to their exterior, and then over on the left is their front door. So this is definitely an open floor space plan. Everything, you see everything. So actually that's the master suite there. And then this is the hallway that leads to the office and the bedroom. So behind the great room is the kitchen. So literally you stand in the kitchen and you see everything. You see all sides of the home. So obviously, for me at least, I did not want them having the back of a sofa to the kitchen. because the island is right there and there's seating off of that. So our focal points here, the fireplace, the natural light on both sides, just centering that up with 2 sofas that are to scale. Those are right around 80 inches. And then just not doing something too beefy and bulky with the end table. So we just went with something a little more slim to keep everything nice and central so you can take in the natural light and the views, but also great conversation. So when you're sitting on that sofa, you could be viewing the TV to the left or part of any conversation that was going on in the kitchen to the right, if that makes sense. Oh, you know what? If I could say one thing too, be careful with your rug sizes. Rugs should, when they can, go completely under furniture. They really should. So this one does. They go all the way to the back, but now you're going to notice it all the time when they don't. If they go like halfway, when you're walking into that space, you actually see that line from underneath. Like, so when something isn't covering it up, you would see, like if this stopped, can you guys see my mouse? If that rug stopped right there, you would see that line underneath that sofa. So it just creates another, I think, another line for your eye to go to. But yeah, watch your rug sizes. They should, when they can, go under the furniture. And then chairs in a space really shouldn't, because chairs kind of give and move forward and backward. So just keep them off of a rug.
It's so good.
Yeah.
Guys, any final questions, or Laura, any final thoughts?
I know we went longer. I hope this wasn't boring. I hope this was helpful for you guys.
Laura, this was great. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. So what I'll do is I'll email the presentation over to Rosie with my contact information. I mean, Jess knows I kind of live by the philosophy that we're all in this together. I mean, our fields are so related. But if there's any questions or anything that you guys were curious about or just wanted to run by and, you know, pick somebody's brain, I hope you guys wouldn't hesitate to reach out, cell phone or text, whatever works for you guys. So I'll get this over to Rosie. She can blast it out to you guys, and then don't hesitate to reach out to me if you need anything.
Thanks, Laura. We got one final question from Jess, and it's, do you do staging for agents? You're more on the...
I do. Okay. So I think it's just one of those things where I think one of my strengths is I am not one of those people that like has to be, I lead, but I also collaborate really well. So, you know, when I'm working with an architect or an engineer, for me, it's not, I don't have to be the one that's right or talking all the time. I want to be the person that like, what's our goal? And let's collaborate together. So I've gone in on meetings with people where, you know, I might meet with that agent once before, or, you know, 15 minutes before the actual meeting, just so we're on like common ground. And I work with them to get what they need done. And so we would just work out a service rate, a design fee, and then, you know, any resources that the staging would need. So yeah, I would be totally open to that. Yep.
That's great. Okay, guys, that's it for today. Join us tomorrow. We're doing a panel on new builds, and we are joined by Jenny Bliss, Jen Kuykendall-Wilkinson, and Tatum Hill. See you soon.
Thanks for your time, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.